Hey, oh yeah, we're live. Hey. Hey everybody. Welcome back to NerdEye with Craig and Eloy. And today we're actually we skipped the last one. I don't remember why. It was something happening that we were like, we can't do it. So
just blame it on the holidays.
Let's do that. I mean, because that makes sense anyway. It probably was that. But we are back. It's the new year. We're actually recording this on the 1st, which is, pretty awesome. Not everybody can jump on and live stream on January 1st. They have actual things that they're doing and stuff. I don't. So, and neither does Craig. This is what we're doing here today. And we decided that we were going to discuss upcoming projects from both Third Eye Games and Nerdburger Games. So that's what we're going to talk about this amazing Friday evening. And I have a bunch, but Craig, why don't you start us off?
Oh, okay. You have a bunch.
Well, I mean, I have a few at least, like 3 or something.
Right. Well, I'm looking at and people who are following me on Twitter and my Discord and all that kind of stuff kind of know this already. But for anybody else who's happening along to this thing, running on the assumption that Kickstarter is going to do Zine Quest again for the 3rd year, which they've done in February the past 2 years. I've been working on a little zine game, a little small scale kind of deal called Low Stakes, which is basically the RPG version, kind of a rules-like game that replicates what we do in the shadows.
Right.
So characters are playing, vampires or werewolves or ghosts or humans who are kind of in on things, all sharing a house together and all just kind of being not very good at being roommates and not very good at living in the modern day, and having all sorts of complications that stem out of just partly out of like being Gothic era monsters, but also being displaced into the modern day. And so, yeah, like if my expectation is that'll go to Kickstarter in February. If for some reason they don't do Zine Quest or Zine Quest gets pushed to a later date, I may just kickstart in February anyway. Unless if Zine Quest got pushed to March, I'd probably sit on it till March just for the added publicity that the Zine Quest thing gets, because people go looking for that stuff more. But if it gets pushed much later in the year, I may just go ahead and do it. It's a small scale thing. It's not costing me a lot of money to make it. It's I expect that if I get a couple hundred backers, it pays for itself. So I'm looking forward to that.
Are we thinking that they're going to push Zine Month back?
I don't know, because usually by this time they've announced something about Zine Quest. Kickstarter themselves has made some sort of announcement. It's a month to go. Like February is a month away. It's the 1st of January, my friend.
Right.
So, or maybe they're just assuming that everybody assumes it'll be in February, so they're not bothering to promote it quite as early.
Well, because this will be like the third or 4th year that they've done
this will be the 3rd one, yeah, if they do
it. Yeah.
So that's the plan for that. And this is like my first foray into doing some more of the work on the project myself. I'm doing the layout myself. I got myself a copy of Affinity Publisher, and I'm learning how to use that. So the layout is not super fancy schmancy. It's going to be pretty straightforward, but it's a small project. I figured it'd be a good one to learn on, to just spend a little time.
Your first couple projects in layout are going to be pretty easy, and then you just keep getting better and better. Like layout's like my jam. Like I love doing layout. I just get like in a zen mode, and I can just be like, ooh, I'm moving text around, and I can do that for like hours. It's crazy. But yeah, no, layout's fun, and it's good to go ahead and start off small, especially if you're doing it yourself. And Indigo Dragon says, Happy New Year, and Happy New Year back to you, Indigo Dragon. So yeah. Oh, that sounds awesome though. But you've told me that you're working on that game before, so it's good to see that it's actually Sounds like it's nearing completion if you're gonna kick it in February. Like it's it's going pretty well with the development.
Yeah, it's the game's done. It's play tested. It's edited. It's more or less laid out, with the exception of just like some flourishes and things that I'll probably add to it. And the artwork I've seen sketches for the artwork, but the final artwork is not done yet. But that should happen this month.
That's cool.
And it's small. It's just a handful of illustrations. So it's not. I'm not waiting on like 70 illustrations.
Yes, unlike one of my games that should be out this year, now in 2021. We're shooting. It's for Orun, which is actually from New Agenda, and we actually got the game done, like with all the writing and everything. I think it was like 3 months ago. And
Awesome.
Then now we've just been like, okay, cool. Now that we have all of the writing done, crap, there's a bunch more art that we need now. So it's been a fight uphill, because we have like one, possibly two artists kind of doing the majority of the work, which means all of the artwork is consistent and beautiful. But it's taking longer because we're only having the one artist do it all. So there you go. But the goal is that we'll get all of the rest of the artwork, I think, by the end of this month, and we'll finish off the layout and the proofing and all that stuff by the end of February. And then February will be when people start getting PDFs, and then we'll deal with print after that. But we'll at least have the PDFs in people's hands. And that game is going to be really good. Oh my God. Especially just looking at the artwork. Like, I did the majority of the mechanics and stuff, and just like, I keep going like, oh, wow, that's cool. Like, that's the drawing of the thing that I wrote up. And it makes it look way cooler than what I described it as in the text, Isn't
it the best when the artist gives you that interpretation? Receiving art is one of my favorite things about making games. It's like top 3. Getting final artwork. Sketches are great too, but man, getting final artwork when it's like, I wrote a thing 2 years ago and now here it is. Like, that's what it looks like. That's the artist puts their spin on it. Awesome. It's great.
But Orun is coming out. Super excited about that. That's been a couple of years in the making, and it was supposed to be out a while ago. But you know what? I'm not even gonna say, because we were delayed because of me, and then COVID hit, which delayed it even more. So I can't even say that all of the delay is COVID related, but like half of it is. So the other half is just me. So
sure. And I'm sure that COVID didn't help you like get to where you needed to be, because it kind of messed everybody up.
Oh my God. No,
I fought really hard. Messed them up mentally, emotionally.
Exactly. Oh my God.
Harder to get stuff done. Just stay focused, and a lot of other stuff weighing on people this past year.
Yes, that is definitely true. Do you have anything else that you're working on that you're coming out with for 2021?
Yeah, Good Strong Hands will publish in the first half of 2021.
Nice.
That's on track to get the rest of the artwork this month. And Todd, who works for you as well, Todd Crapper, is doing layout and has done a spectacular job. The layout looks awesome. Excuse me. Though, there's some stuff left to be laid out, like a couple dozen pages, but and then the proof process and a proofread and whatnot. But I think it's reasonable. Don't hold me to this. I think this book will be ready in April. I feel like April's probably. I think I can probably get this thing to print by like mid-February to late February to get it to the printer, and then it'll take like a month. It'll take like a month plus a month or a little over to get the print run done and get it shipped, and assuming no issues.
Assuming no issues, which
you go through there's a proof process with the printer too. Like you get, for those of you who want to know how the sausage is made, when you do a print run, they don't print a bunch of books for you, but they print like a set of pages and then
Right.
like a cover mock-up, and they send it to you and say, okay, this is basically what it's going to look like. It's not perfect because the printing press looks a little different than what they printed on for the proofing, but it lets you know that, like, okay, everything's laid out in the right place. This is your last chance to like, okay, now make sure that all the page numbers are showing, make sure that there's not like a weird line break somewhere.
It's your last chance to do it for free.
Because
you can always tell them to change it after the fact, but you got to pay them to reset things,
right. with print on demand and PDFs and stuff, like if you goof something up, you can just change it and update the files, and then everything from that point forward just will come out right. With a 500 copy or whatever print run, like, okay, you got to make sure it's all right, because you're about to print 500 or 1,000 or whatever books, and they're all going to look like that.
Yep. Oh yeah.
But
that's cool. So you got low.
There will be a typo. There will be a typo in there somewhere. Just prepare yourselves, everybody. I just tell everybody. Oh, no. I tell people that all the time. There's no such thing as a perfect book. There'll probably be a typo.
Yeah, I've described my proofing process. Like, I have like 4 layers of people that have to go, and there's always one or two. There's always one or two typos.
Yeah, you always miss something.
I mean, even with multiple people, you're not going to catch everything. All right, so let me run through. So I have 2 books that should probably be out for Part-Time Gods this year. We got one out last year, and it was supposed to be a second one, but the second one got delayed. So that second one will be the first one of this year, because it actually is almost done. I literally, I have to write up a couple of backstories for some characters and a piece of fiction, and then the book's done. Like, I just need to do it. I even already have all the art and everything. Like, it's all in. I just have to actually make the time to finish off the last little bits of writing and get those little bits of writing edited. That's to obviously go through the proofing and all that stuff, but that should be a January release. So definitely January for the first Part-Time Gods book of this year. And the second one is going to be, so that's for the Part-Time Gods companion book, which has a bunch of new options, new occupations that you can choose from, new archetypes that you can choose from when you're making your characters. I just wanted to just overload everybody. All my games are already designed with so much decision paralysis in them that I just wanted to double up on that. So
yeah,
it's just another book of just more things that you wish you could put onto your character, but you can't because you chose that other thing that you like. So should be fun. It's a really great book. Honestly, a lot of good stuff came out of that. When writing it and developing it, like, just so much stuff. And some of it is first edition stuff that was revamped for second edition, but the vast majority of it is all brand new stuff that is new to second edition. So that's the cool thing about it. And then the second book should be for the Touched, which is how you play those regular people who aren't gods but have a little bit of divinity in them. So that's like your champions, your god killers, your Forsaken, basically those people who have either made like dark deals for power or whatever, but they're people though, so they're not gods. And oh my gosh, I've done so much development on that. Like, that is just like basic, because it's basically 5 different types of the Touched, and then it's 5 chapters, each one just like having a whole new character creation options and everything that you can do, because they all work differently, and they all, some are definitely more powerful than others. But I'm excited for that book. That book should be out second half of the year, since we're getting one out first half of the year, second half of the year for the other one. So those are my 2 Part-Time Gods updates, which I'm very excited about.
Was the Touched part of the first edition of the game?
The Touched
characters.
So in first edition, we touched upon playing champions and god killers. Yeah, well,
okay,
pun not intended. But we did talk a little bit about doing Yeah, so we did. Yeah, so Champions and God Killers were in first edition, but like on a small scale, it was more just like,
Gotcha.
yeah,
So like this
they
is a whole
can
book that
kind of do
really
this, kind of do that. What's that?
this is a whole book that just expands that out into a much more
Right.
robust
And it's going to expand
kind
those
of thing.
two, but also then add in 3 others, and it's going to be, giant. So, and all of the source books and stuff all come with like custom adventures and all that fun stuff. And hello to Mildra, and
Hey, Mildred.
over on Twitch, hello to John. Hey, John, good to see you. John Passion Nerdly. Everybody can go check out the Passion Nerdly podcast. They do actual plays of Ninja Crusade. So there you go.
They do some of my games too. We've what did we was it Die Laughing? I think we did a Die Laughing way back.
Oh, that's nice.
I should pop in there and do another thing sometime with them. If they'll have me.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, we're just gonna invite ourselves on. Like, who cares, right? Like, hey John, we're just gonna show up one day.
Just make some time. Just make some time for me, please.
So there's that. I don't want to bogart it though. So what else do you got? You got low stakes and you got big strong hands. You got anything else in the works?
I'm starting. I'll be like the system is more or less written, and because it's using the same system as Good Strong Hands, with some tweaks for a game called Nowhereville. That is like it's a horror game set in a town that won't let you leave. So it's a Stephen King-ish style kind of horror, small town horror, where you're you're stuck in this town. The town won't let you leave. And you're surrounded by, a couple thousand people who everybody knows everybody else. Everybody knows everybody else's business. And all these terrible things happen, and everybody just kind of sweeps it under the rug, and nobody really pays attention, and kind of just ignores the fact that this is like a murder capital. Like, this is a terrible place to live. So it draws a little bit of inspiration from in that respect from it, which in the town in it, the town of Derry is like, everybody knows that bad things happen in Derry, but everybody kind of ignores it.
Yeah.
And so that uses the same system as Good Strong Hands, but tweaked a little bit. And I'm going to be playtesting that actually on NerdEye, starting in like mid-January. Hopefully we'll have the first game session on the 16th. I think that's if that's a Saturday afternoon, and we'll run for 7, 8, 9 weeks, and we'll playtest the system like on the show, and you'll get a chance to see like what changes, maybe depending on what kind of does change. And the biggest chunk of stuff that I have to really still have to write for that is the town itself. And I came because I expect the game to be, kind of a 6x9 book, 100 and something pages, like low hundreds. Like it's not going to be a huge fat game. And one of the things that kind of gets me with settings is once you know the setting, Like once you know that Bob the janitor at the school is a vampire, Bob the janitor at the school is a vampire. Right. So my intention with this actually is to not set any of that kind of stuff in stone, but create, like, there's going to be this whole cast of NPCs, and every single one of them is going to have a list of possible secrets of the things that they are. And some of those secrets are just a normal human being. They're just a regular person going on about their business who's in this town where things, where bad things happen. But you might also, like, a character might be a werewolf, or a character might be a cult leader, or a character might be a vampire, or a character might be, have like some sort of alien parasite that controls them, or whatever. Like, I'm creating a whole like little list of things that you can be, that'll have a monster section that talks about that. And so when a GM runs the game, the idea is that, like, each time you run the campaign, you can make new choices for what all those NPCs are. So the town is different every time. So a player could ostensibly play multiple campaigns and not know everything.
Which you want. I mean, and honestly, you almost kind of want to have Bob the janitor, but also have the ability to have Janet the janitor, and maybe Mark the janitor, have a few different janitor types, each with their own secrets, so that you have no clue who's going to show up or what secret's going to happen.
Yeah, there's going to be a bunch of stuff like that. There's also, I'm planning to have multiple options of why you can't leave the town. Like, what is it about the town that prevents you from leaving? So if you want to have a campaign that explores that and tries to fix that, like, you can do that multiple different ways. And I have dreams of right now it's a spreadsheet, but ultimately it'll be like a form fillable PDF, where it'll be a matrix of like these major NPCs. And the matrix will be like their relationship with each other. So you can say, well, these two people are neighbors. These two people are friends. These two people have a rivalry. These two people hate each other. Okay. And so you can change. So not only can you change the secrets of each of the NPCs, but you can also change their relationships with each other. And those relationships can evolve as you go. So the GM can use this as a tool to kind of track how things change. And then it'll also have a spot for you to put the character's secret. So you'll have like, a handy reference guide for like all these major NPCs of like, are they a member of the cult? Because there's the potential of a cult. So even if they're not the cult leader, they might be a member of the cult. Are they,
right?
What role do they fill? As far as like a job, or like who are they in the town, and then what their secret is, and then what their relationships with each other are. So you can have all that sort of kind of change and be different every time you play.
Nice. I mean, that sounds great. I would play that. That sounds awesome. And then, but you're not but you're saying basically you don't really have all of that ready for your playtest, right? You're just
well, it'll be one of those things that I'll just kind of develop a bunch of it as we're playtesting, and then I'll refine what I have and I'll add more to it for the actual game book. Because in the playtest, we won't get to every possible person in town in the course of the playtest. We'll only deal with so many. So, I mean, in, like writing setting, once you really kind of know what it is, the hardest part for me is coming up with good names, like, getting a nice diverse cast of characters with great names, that stick with you, and just kind of building all of that out. So like this is a game that I don't know when it would kickstart, but it could conceivably kickstart this year. It could conceivably kickstart relatively early this year. It wouldn't necessarily be like in October or November.
Well, I mean, especially if your playtest goes really well, it'll be like,
it depends a lot on the playtest.
It was more ready than I thought it was. Let's go ahead and kick it now.
It's gonna depend a lot on the playtest, and I'm planning to do the layout and everything myself for that as well. So that's going to save a lot of time. That I'll just be able to work on that. I'll be able to start working on that, well in advance, and just getting master pages and kind of figuring out how it's going to go. My hope to do for artwork is to do. I'm experimenting with the idea of really saving a bunch of money on trying to do one of these games. I love hiring artists. I love having an artist that does really fantastic. When I did Good Strong Hands, it's like all this fantasy stuff that like you kind of need an artist to get the right look for it and everything. But this is a modern day horror kind of thing. There's a ton of like royalty free or relatively cheap to license photography. That is people doing like horror photography and just like creepy places and people in makeup and costume stuff. And like, so I expect that I'm not sure exactly how I'm going to go, if it's going to be straight photography or if it's going to be photography that gets manipulated a little bit to make it look a little more like sketches and do filters and things. I'm going to toy around with some ideas and lay out, kind of do the book with more of that kind of stuff.
That could be really cool, though. I already get a good idea as to what it will look like.
Yeah, and it's because you can get away with that because it's small town. Like you can find photographs of small towns. If I can't find the photographs that I want, I will just go to my hometown and I will take photographs.
Well, exactly. And then you could have like a sweet picture and then just like Photoshop like a gruesome murder in the background or something.
I've already got an idea for that. For like on the cover, I've got this great photo that's just looking down the street in this town. There's no people. It's just a street scene there's some cars parked, and there's all the buildings and everything. It's a small town. Nothing's taller than like 2 stories. It's like a main street in a small town. And I'm like, can I Photoshop in like the silhouette of a person holding a decapitated head, like way down there? And that's it. That's the whole cover.
And that's it. I love it. Yes, I do love it. It's it's one of those things that like it's one of those covers that might get people to pick it up because they'll be like, but it's just the street. Like, why, huh? Like, what is this game? Because it's interesting because it kind of almost does the opposite approach that like most people will tell you to do. Like most of the time they're like, no, you need a big giant flashy thing to get people to pick it up. And it's almost like the opposite of that. It's just like an empty street. What is that? I have to, let me check that out. Cause why would it just be an empty street?
Right. And, I could potentially do more than just the one thing. You could put something in a window, put a ghost in a window. Yeah. You could just like a couple of little things like that too. And I found myself like what I envision, what I would like to see is this street scene with whatever gets photoshopped into it. And I have the idea that the town is actually called Nowhereville. And because it's in the middle of nowhere and it's this town where all these terrible things happen, the townsfolk refer to it as Nowhereville. But I want to have like a street sign or like a town sign, the town sign, now entering Norville, population, whatever, with Nowhereville spray painted across Norville. So you can still make out Norville.
Right.
But it's otherwise that green sign, that you see when you enter a town.
Yeah.
So, so it'll be a kind of a different kind of cover. It'll be like, I don't know. I'm
excited to see it whenever
I'm toying around with ideas. I might come up with something even better than that, but it's just an idea that I have.
No, that sounds awesome. And you're going to start running that in a couple of weeks on Saturdays, which is good. And I actually am going to be, since we just talked about Part-Time Gods, but I'm probably going to start running that in a couple of weeks as well here. Mine are Wednesday evenings. I'm still just trying to narrow down a couple of other players. So we'll see who ends up coming and playing. I guess we'll see. But the game that we just finished before the new year was for Ampere 5. And excuse me, oh my gosh. That is actually what we're going to be kickstarting. We're probably going to be kickstarting that in February or March, one of the two, for Ampere 5, which is the final book of the series. And very excited about that. So that is another, big one that we have coming.
The culmination.
Yes. Well, and we're going to have it set. We're going to have it as two different ways you can buy it. You can either buy it at, the separate editions and whatnot, or we're going to have where you can buy the giant, like omnibus, giant thing. We're still trying to figure it out because some people are like, well, just give me all the story in one book and then all of the mechanics in another book. And I'm just like, like that seems like too much work to like separate it all out. I would just rather just give you the whole thing as just one thing. And I mean, I'll lay it out like all the powers by itself, and I can lay out all the story and stuff by itself. But there's a lot of like stuff that happens in, I don't know, the layout's going to be crazy for that, but I'm happy to let Todd do that. But Ampere 5, it's looking really strong. I actually have the outline and like maybe a quarter of it already written. So January is I'm going to do the majority of the writing for it, and then in February, the majority of the writing will be done. But the fun thing about the book is, normally what we do is I give a timeline and then we give like a deep dive into the timeline in a separate chapter. Like, hey, this thing happened. And in another chapter we say, and this was the secret behind that thing that happened. But I think what we're going to be doing this year for year 5 is I'm inviting some of my freelancers that have come and written for AMP. So the first part is going to be my timeline, my completion of the story. And then my freelancers are going to come in and they're intimate with the world. They've written for it before. Some of the stuff they made, like they put into the storyline, but they get to kind of give us what after the story ends, what do they think is going to happen? And what kind of cool things is going to come after, just to kind of set up anybody who, might be just getting into the game now. And what if you want to play after the timeline officially ends, just different ideas of where you can take it. So I think that's going to be really, really fun. And we have, excuse me, and we have some affiliation guides that we're going to have as part of it, that we're hoping to also get funded. So we'll see what happens, because we have 8 of the affiliation guides done. We have another 6 that need to get done. So hopefully we fund for the whole thing and then we can get everything done. And if we do that, then it just makes the omnibus book just even bigger, of course. But that's what you want. That's what people want. They want a giant.
Everybody loves a big fat book. Yeah.
Yeah. If we did that though, I would probably have to make it no longer, because the book right now is 7 by 10. So I might have to bump it up to maybe, the regular 8.5 by 11, just so I can fit more on a page.
Sure.
So we'll have to see. It just seems like that might be the way to go for a giant book. But yeah, so there's that.
I've had people ask me if I was ever going to take the 3 Capers supplements and put them all in an omnibus, like put them in a big hardcover. I've had people ask that question. Yeah. They like people. There are people out there that like that big fat book.
I'm weird that way. I actually prefer to have separate books. Like, because when somebody just owns the one book, like, I doubt that more than one person in a group is going to be like, we all bought the giant book. It's like, no, but so I think it's cool to be able to be like, oh yeah, that power is in year 2. Here's that book. You have that book while I'm looking at year 3, and Mark over there can be looking at year 5. And we can all kind of just be looking at stuff at the same time. If you just buy the giant book, it's like you have to read over each other's over your other shoulders, or take turns. And who wants to take turns? I'm impatient. I ain't got time for that.
Yeah, but some people love them. They love them. They do. I mean,
but just so 2 other games that are coming out that people have heard about. I've talked about them before. 2 other books. Poison Fruit. That's going to be for Ninja Crusade. That was supposed to be last year. And then right as we started writing it, me and the other co-writer, because it was going to be me and the other co-writer, not only was I hit by COVID a lot, not that I got sick, but it definitely disrupted my life. But the other co-writer, life just went to shambles because of it. So that's what happens with crazy things. So 2021, we're going to start the process over again for that book. So that book should be out. Kids Guide, actually all the writing is done. That's Kids Guide to Monster Hunting is the book I'm talking about. Kids Guide to Monster Hunting. That's for the PIP system, and that book should actually be done. I think all the writing is done, but it's ready to start going through the editing and the proofing and stuff. So at least we're at a pretty good stage for that book. So
busy.
No, and then I still have one more to talk about, but I'm gonna throw it over to you again, because I don't want to bogart the whole conversation.
Hey, I just got my 4th playtester for Nowhereville. I just got confirmation that they can join. So cool. Which of course now means I have to get the playtest materials together. So I've got something else to do tomorrow.
Work you.
Well, as far as what else is on my plate, I have been toying with the idea of Capers Cyber for over a year. And I've done some work on it. I've done a bunch of writing. I've done a lot of rule stuff. I created a whole bunch of new powers. I developed some other stuff that kind of expands, allows you to play a character to kind of quote a higher level, quote unquote. You can, your character, you can basically you could play a campaign longer. Because your character will have more space to advance and more stuff to be able to, cool stuff to do, and gain. And it's actually, it's a continuation of the Capers timeline, which starts in the 1920s, and then there's a book in the 40s and a book in the 60s, and it jumps to today, to the 2020s. But it's an alternate 2020s where everything is much more advanced technologically, because when you have super powered people, you have super smart people, and when you have super smart people, advancements in technology happen faster. So the idea being that in this world, the internet that we know now happened in the 80s.
Right. That makes sense.
And so now, when you get to the 2020s, you're into the, now you're into cyber technology, and the singularity is right around the corner. AI is just about ready to destroy us all. Like it's just a matter of time before somebody creates a true, really good AI and it just immediately replicates
Are there
itself.
flying
And
cars? That's all I care about.
I don't have specific plans for flying. I think there could probably be hover vehicles. Flying gets, I don't know, we'll see. But the idea being that it would be like an actual supers / cyberpunk setting in like an alternate today. With like the full-on mega corporations, the game will be set. It'll be punk. It'll be like actual cyberpunk as opposed to flashy. Look at how cool everything looks, cyberpunk. Because I want megacorps. Well, I want megacorps that have come to control the populace, that have beat a lot of people down, and they've also weaponized supers. And so like if you when you're playing the game, then you're playing capers, or you can play non-superpowered characters too, because you can get all cybered up and whatnot. But the idea being that you'd be looking to actually crush dismantle the cyber or the megacorps. Like if people have paid attention to the capers timeline and seen the little hints of what's going on in the background about how like capers, the superpowered people are called capers in the game. Capers are being like, by the time you get to the 60s, you have to be registered. Like it's full on X-Men style. Like if you're supposed to be registered with the government. If you're not, you're a rogue agent, and you can be handled more harshly. And then that only gets worse when you go from the 1960s to the 2020s. And so, like if you're playing a superpowered character in this cyber game, you're not playing a registered, like you're just not. Like if you're playing a registered, registered super, then you're working for the government and the megacorps, and like that's not what the game is about. So like you're literally going to be playing for fighting. And I've got like stuff that I'm delving into as far as like you could literally play a campaign that's all about cyber activism. It's less about like fighting, shooting up stuff and like breaking into megacorps and stealing stuff and shooting things and whatnot. Like you could play almost as activists who are looking to find ways to dismantle the megacorps in other ways than strictly through violence.
Nice.
And I hit on an idea that hasn't come to full fruition yet, but I want there to be some sort of self-actualization mechanic to the game, which is to say that with cyber technology and melding of man and machine and AI and the singularity being near, and people being also having potentially having superpowers and all the different ways that you can change yourself in the game, that like the game is going to promote that. Like whereas some cyberpunk games have had the humanity score where like the more cyberware you have, the less human you are, blah blah blah. That doesn't fly so well anymore. I literally want a mechanic that's the opposite of that. Like it rewards you for making yourself into who you are supposed to be and who you truly are.
That makes sense.
So if I'm not sure exactly how all of that manifests yet. I'm still trying to figure out how I can do that mechanically. I think it involves a lot. You almost plan your character to some extent. Like you have an idea of where you're going to go with your character, and you can make changes as you go. You can adjust, plan for that. But then there's certain things that can happen along the way. Some of which are like literally things that you gain, like powers or cyberware or whatever. But then also like character choices of like you're going to choose to take on a particular purpose, a purpose in life. You're going to dedicate yourself to this thing that's important to you. And that's part of who you are as well. And so you get rewarded for that mechanically when you make story choices.
I'm interested in seeing how you do that. Definitely.
I just got to figure out how it all works mechanically. I think I know how it can work.
It's a +2 to self-actualization. So
well, you have in the game. My initial thought is in the game you have the Moxie pool. Your character has Moxie. It's a resource that you can spend.
Okay.
And normally in capers you can have no maximum of 5 Moxie. My thought is that your Moxie maximum will go up as you hit these steps. It increases your possible maximum Moxie, and then you can also spend one of those points of permanent, like one of those limits, to automatically succeed on a check with a boon, like to have the best success that you can.
Yeah.
So you can be constantly striving to gain more stuff that's going to push your Moxie maximum up. But then as it goes up, like if you have too much Moxie, you don't need that much because you're going to spend it, but you're just going to be sitting on a lot of extra that's not going to be doing anything. So the idea being that you can spend those permanent points away to get these like immediate, important, like I do this thing and I succeed on it and I do it really well. And I spend this permanent thing to do it, but I can earn it back again later.
I dig that. I like the spending of permanent things. I think it gives some oomph to like doing something that's really awesome. And not too many games do that.
That's going to take it's going to take a bunch of playtesting. It's going to take campaign playtesting is the more important point. I need 4 or 5 players to all progress through those processes of gaining all these gaining this Moxie limit that goes up and up and up, and see what happens when some of them spend it constantly and maybe one of the people kind of sits on it, doesn't spend it as much, because you get players with different dynamics. Some people play conservatively, some people they'll spend like crazy. They'll be like, oh, I've got 3 Moxie. My max Moxie is 3. I can get by with 2. So I'll spend this permanent limit point to get this great effect now. Even though
I do that.
It might hamstring them a little.
A lot of the time what I end up doing is I will like an amp, for instance, there's it's all based on your adrenaline. So if like you're in danger or you're in a fight or something happens around you, you'll get a bump in your juice that you can spend to use your powers. But basically what I have a resting, like, it's called juice is what it's called. So like, what is your juice at when you're just hanging out? Right. So it's like your juice is most amps have a juice of 3 when they're just hanging out. And then if bad stuff starts happening, it can go up to 10, and then you're spending it and you're gaining more and spending it and gaining more, spending and getting more. And then, but I had a bunch of people who, when I first introduced that, there was a lot of like, oh, well, I just like, I walk around with adrenaline needles and I just like, poke myself with them and just make sure that I'm always at the max. And I'm just like, but no, like eventually that stuff is going to wear off, so basically it becomes like an ebb and flow sort of thing.
Sure.
And it's a good way to do it. Like even in Part-Time Gods, like I have the Pantheon pool in the middle. And like when things happen throughout the game, you get a whole bunch of extra dice and all this blah, blah, blah. And I have some groups who are just like, no, we don't want to use it because what if something happens? And I'm like, we have like 5 more minutes to play and you have not spent any. So
I remind people of stuff like that with one shots all the time. I'm like, you got like, there's like, this is a one shot. You got a half an hour left. Here's the big final combat. Like you've got 5 Moxie, like start spending it.
Start spending it. Yeah.
I'm not going to reward you for hanging on to it. You don't get something special at the end.
Well, and in Part-Time Gods, what I ended up doing was just saying that it refreshes at the beginning of every session. So if you don't spend it, you lost it. So done. Yep. Like, so you better spend it. That's not even in a con game. That's just any game. Like if you're just accumulating and never doing anything with it, well, then that's not how you play that game. So I wouldn't suggest doing that. I would suggest doing it the way that it's written, and you should use it. So that's just me. So I mean, yeah, but that sounds cool. I'd play that.
Now I have to
Cyberpunk 2020 capers. That sounds great.
There's a lot of work to be done there.
Oh yeah.
And that one will be more expensive to produce and everything, and that'll need a full artwork and the whole deal and everything. I won't be able to cheat my way into, if I need 2020 era semi-futuristic, but also with like some art deco, because I want there to be like a nostalgia for the 1920s. That's part of the aesthetic. So I literally want like, Tommy guns, like pulse rifle Tommy gun looking thing with a fedora that's made of like silver with a chrome band, or like, whatever.
What you could do is you could take your existing art and then just hand it to a different artist, and then can just apply layers to it.
Chrome it up.
Be a guy, and you just grab him, like make like a cyber eye and like all this stuff. And I don't suggest doing that. I'm just saying that would be the cheap way to do it.
It could be no. I mean, if I used Beth Varney, who did all the Capers artwork, if I did that again, I could take a few pieces from other books and say, okay, let's take those pieces and let's cyber them, and like just let that be an Easter egg for people who have all the books. You know, like, oh, this is a piece from the.
Like, hey, I know this piece. Yeah.
Oh, and here's the great kicker to it too is, of course, there's cyberspace in the game, right? There's going to be a virtual world. Well, the virtual world is the Capers game.
Oh, I love it.
So you go and
that's good.
You go to 1920s Chicago or New York or whatever, and you've got a whole cast of characters that are computer generated, and they are the characters from the Capers game. So like, I've already got the supplement's done before the main game.
Yes, exactly. No, that's awesome. That sounds great. Again, I'd play that. I don't know. It sounds great.
If I get my act together and get the stupid thing written.
Well,
and play
we all have to get our acts together.
And I expect that would be a bigger book too. That'll be a big.
Yeah.
That'll be like a 8.5 by 11. It'll be like 200 pages or more.
Well, it would essentially have to explain
to
everything that's in the regular book, and then with more. Unless you just made it possibly a supplement to the actual Capers, and then that would save you some page count. You wouldn't have to reprint a bunch of rules and stuff, because if you already own Capers, then now you just buy let's bump everything up to 2020, and then you can introduce a new rule. You could do that.
I got away with doing the supplement thing and just having like, okay, now here's like in equipment, 2 pages of equipment that are in 1940s dollars. And here's one in 1960s dollars. But the problem is when you jump 100 years, everything changes so dramatically. Just everything about the world that you're in, like it needs a whole new setting unto itself. It needs a whole New York megalopolis kind of thing. Mm-hmm. So that's got to be all new. It's got this stuff that expands and allows you to play for longer and have higher level characters essentially, which it's probably better to just, like this feels like it wants to just be a whole game book from the ground up again. It'll be everything self-contained.
Right. Yeah. I was just throwing that out
there. I've thought about it. It works okay when you jump 20 or 40 years, but like when you jump 100 years, boy, it's so different.
I agree. And then the last thing that I'm working on for this year, and there might be other things, but this is the last official thing that I'm working on, is I'm working on my Sinister Beasts game, which is my dark Pokemon RPG, which should be out. That'll probably be this, very tail end of this year, probably. But like a lot of the principal writing is done, but I'm bringing in a new developer to kind of help flesh it out and maybe make it less just Eloy's brain centric. But it is actually, it's pretty good the way it is, and a very different approach to combat. It's using the chakra system, so the same system that Ninja Crusade and Part-Time Gods used. But again, for combat, I'm switching everything up because that's what I do in any of my games. I like every game to kind of feel like it's supposed to. So if you're having monster battles, I can't use ninja mechanics for that. It just doesn't work out. But oh my gosh, I'm very, very excited about that game. And like I said, we're going to go into major development of it this year. And that's one I've been promising for a few years, actually. But I keep hitting roadblocks where I was like, but I don't know how this is supposed to work. And I'd work on it for like a few months, and then I put it away because I had other shit I needed to do. But eventually we've gotten now to a point where it's pretty darn good. So now we just have to get it written and fleshed out and all that stuff. But I'm very excited. It's kind of a mix between Pokemon and Battle Angel, and there's some other stuff in there, some Ghost in the Machine. There's a ton of stuff in there, some Iron Man. But I'm pretty excited about that game because I kind of get to define a brand new kind of way to interpret a new world. It's post-apocalyptic, which is fun. Post-apocalyptic Pokemon. Come on, that sounds great. But yes, very excited about that game. And that's the last thing that I'm working on And then, like I said, anything else will be gravy. But that's a lot. I think people are asking too much of me. If they expect more than what I just listed out, all there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That would be 7 books this year. If you guys are expecting more than 7 books, then you smoking something, definitely.
Yeah, I'm not doing that many.
Well, when I say that I'm doing it, like I also have a team. Of
oh yeah.
So it's not like me doing everything single-handedly. That would not happen. So, although a lot of these I am doing, but like Kids Guide is already done. Sinister, I'm going to be handing off to somebody. Run is pretty much already done. It's just getting in the layout and stuff. So like that 7th one is kind of like it's done. You guys are just waiting for it. But the other ones, the other ones are kind of me. So, and I have to fit it in with all of the other crap that I do because that's my life. But what I did hear is that they're probably going to be opening up my youngest son's school again, which that right there is amazing for me because it will allow me to actually start getting work done again. I have not been able to do anything for months because my son is 4 and he, he's like a fungus that just like is attached to you and you can't scrub it off. Like it just stays there constantly. So I can't do things. I'm only able to really do things on the weekends. So that's why like almost nothing got done in 2020 because my son has been around saying, Daddy, can we go and have some cereal? And I'd be like, well, I would really like to write maybe for a little bit. No, I think we should have cereal instead. And it's like, fine, I guess. It's crazy because you can do little things, but like to get into like whenever I'm doing music or I'm doing writing or I'm doing any of these things, like you have to get into a mode. You have to get into that creative, like, you have to get a groove going. And that means that you need to block out like a good 3-4 hours of time for you to like knock some stuff out and really get stuff going. Like you can't sit like, oh my God, writing is such a weird thing. Like you can't just sit and write like, oh, I got like 200 words done. I'll come back to it later. It's like, no, it's like, as soon as you got those 200 words, you have to write the next 200 and you have to write the next 200 and then the next 1,000 and you have to, but it all has to happen there. Otherwise you mess with your flow. And that's why it's like, it's very annoying. I'm very excited. My son's going to be going back to school. So, is what I'm saying. I love my son, but I need less time with him so that I can get other things done.
All right. Well, it sounds like you've got a busy year ahead of you.
I do. I mean, like I said, on top of these 7 books, people, seven books, on top of 7 books, I started a band. We're going to be releasing some of our music this year. So very excited about that. I actually just posted about that on Facebook all today because I created the Facebook page for it. I don't know why I hadn't done that yet, but I just decided that the first of the year was the time to do that. And I've actually been working on like a final mix of our first song. So that's what I've been doing for a lot of today. But yeah, so doing that. And then obviously I have all my YouTube channels that I have to start making content again for. I haven't done anything in like weeks because holidays. Oh man, I can't wait for my
you put these little chats of ours up on your YouTube, do you not?
These do go up on my YouTube channel. These go up on my my Eloy the Saint YouTube channel. And people seem to enjoy them there. I didn't get like a ton of views, but hey, I don't get a ton of views on there in general. So
no, I'm asking mostly for me because I just want to make sure I link up to this one in particular. For my folks, my fans, who are wondering what's going on.
Go back and be like, okay, what did I promise people? Oh crap, I actually have to make that happen now. That's mostly that's why I'm making a list over here. I'm like, all right, what are the things I just said I'm going to try and get done this year? Okay, now I actually have to do those things. So
nuts.
I could have not mentioned half of them, and then it would have just been, Eloy didn't say anything about that. But no, I like to tell everything to everybody, and it keeps me on my toes. And people will be like, hey, where's that thing that you said? I'll be like, oh yeah, I forgot about that. Let's do that now.
And I'm a sucker.
Yeah, pretty much.
Now you're on the hook.
Now I'm on the hook. I'm always on the
But
hook.
yeah, people are more forgiving, especially with everything we just came out of, and you know, it's going to take all year for it's going to take 2021 most if not all of the year for the RPG industry to kind of get back to where it had been. Like, you know, as far as like when we're going to maybe see some conventions happen, people are going to, you know, production schedules are going to start to ramp back up a little bit better.
Yeah.
You know, people are going to start shifting back into modes of how they were doing things earlier, before last year. Yeah, it's going to take some time, and people are being forgiving about that. And anybody who's not being forgiving about that, screw them.
It's a jerk.
You're being a jag. Knock it off.
Knock it off, man.
Don't be a poop head.
Yes. Don't be a duty head. All right, so I think that officially means that we're done. So I think we're gonna go ahead.
We've devolved to calling people poop heads and duty heads. So yeah, I think bedtime for Craig.
Yeah, I think we're good. It's definitely bedtime for Eloy. So hey, everybody who came and actually there were a few of you who came in and said, you know, Happy New Year to everybody.
Yep.
Great things coming from both Third Eye Games and Nerdburger Games, as well as NerdEye. This channel, we have lots of fun stuff, and I have my Part-Time Gods game that's going to be the first quarter. Craig's Nowhereville playtest is going to be the first quarter, so you have those. I'm also going to be interspersing some one-shots here and there on Wednesday nights, so that it's hard to ask somebody to do, like, just make sure that you are 10 consecutive weeks to come and record this thing. So I'm like, how about 3 weeks on and 1 off? We'll see what happens. I still only have 2 players at the moment, so it's still not an enticing thing for too many people, I guess.
Well, anyway, it's a weeknight, so it's a little rough. Yeah, weeknights can be tough to schedule.
Yeah, Wednesday. Yeah, exactly. That too. Oh man,
so you'll find somebody.
Terrible. I'm terrible. All right, everybody. So we will see you later, and thanks for coming and listening to me and Craig blabber. See you later.